Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Clarity product webinar that happens the first Wednesday of each month. Michelle Anton here, Director of Communications for Clarity, and we have a fascinating presentation for you. Our host is Chris Neville, Vice President of Product Development for Clarity, and if you're new to Clarity, it's a cutting-edge bioenergetic wellness company. Now, before I turn the webinar over to Chris, I want to share a little bit about his background with you because he has more than 25 years experience developing nutritional products. And by the way, he's the mastermind behind Clarity's flagship nutritional drink called Calibrate. Chris's company, Biophotonics Innovations, is involved with ongoing research and product development focused on the latest scientific findings for longevity, along with supporting the emergence of exotic energy technologies. Hey, Chris Neville, take it away.
Thanks, and welcome everybody. Look, this evening's really introducing you to something that we believe is quite a game changer in terms of health and well-being. When you consider that stress impacts our life in a myriad of ways, really. But when you stop and think about the consequences of stress, and we're talking about mental stress, emotional stress. Now, you could be in the traffic and thinking, okay, that's a certain level of survival just to get from, home to the office or office back home or otherwise. But what's important is that there is a certain level of stress that is definitely part of our survival mechanism, but what's happening today, specifically in our modern world and society, is that we are in elevated levels of stress, whether it be some geopolitical things going on globally, or whether it be family dynamics, financial dynamics, to health dynamics or otherwise. The reason why this is so important is the fact that when you consider health, it's not just a physical stimulus. It's not just about the nutritional impact or the lifestyle impact. It's also about our mental and emotional well-being. So it's really about happiness and peace of mind. And nobody's really addressing it in a holistic way that I can really identify, at least, in this space. And so Clarity took a different approach in terms of looking at not just stress as the experience of well-being, but also the functional level of how stress plays out or wreaks havoc in the body in terms of stimulating oxidative stress and therefore inflammation and other things because of our mental and emotional disposition. And this comes back to the understanding that the universe doesn't speak words. It actually speaks frequency. So it's not speaking German, with respect. It's not speaking English. It's not speaking Italian or French. It's actually speaking frequency. And what we mean by that is that our DNA, the very fabric of our being, is energetic first and foremost. And then it's physical and functional. And that plays out all the way upstream to our cells and obviously our tissues, organs, and systems of the body. Why this is important is that because today, more than ever before, we have this acceleration in the use of electronics. And the use of electronics and this invisible spectrum, this electromagnetic spectrum, when we consider that there's the visible spectrum of everything that we can perceive with our eyes, and we may see that as being the rainbow as such in the illustration. But there's also an invisible spectrum, and this is really probably more the part that we want to address today, because the invisible spectrum is getting very, very busy. The introduction of obviously power transmission lines, and then the power points in our home, Wi-Fi, microwaves, TV screens, the radiation from our devices, smart screens, through to airport scanners and the like. What we have is this acceleration of man-made frequencies that we're swimming in, and they're very, very different to what we've evolved with. So if you think of being able to see these frequencies of text messages or Wi-Fi, this is known as e-smog or electrosmog. And there's a growing number of the population that are electrosensitive. They are definitely either grossly or subtly affected by just the presence of electronic devices in the home or in the workplace. And this is becoming more and more a major problem. Why? Because the research is actually showing categorically that the frequencies, they may call them RF or otherwise, but realistically the combination of all of these frequencies is actually having a disturbance. Through traditional Chinese medicine or Ayurvedic medicine or other traditions that refer to energetic fields of the body, we can now measure this field and the disruption to this field through very sensitive technology. Some of it, as we know, is GDVs, through to, live meridian analysis or otherwise. But irrespective of the now new technology, it is evident that the body is being disrupted on some level, which is then playing out in a physical level of dysfunction. And this is why we need to address it, because rather than looking for a pill or a potion and coming up with the next something as far as a product is concerned, we looked at this true source of challenge. And rather than looking at the source from just a purely physical perspective, we looked at it from an energetic perspective. And what we developed was a medallion, which is very, very easy to incorporate in your life, whether you put it in your pocket or you wear it on your body as a necklace or otherwise, or pop it under your pillow. This white jade is actually been hypercharged with our proprietary QSET. QSET standing for Quantum Signature Enhancement Technology. It's a bit like, if you will, burning a CD, where you infuse the song on a CD. Well, we can infuse the song onto this stone as a carrier. So when you wear it on your body, the body has a reference point to harmony. So if you think of all of the energetic systems of the body as being an orchestra, I like to think of it as being, this is the conductor with the sheet of music. So that way the organs have got a reference point to timing and tempo. And what that means is that it shows up in the biochemical processes of the body and the release of stress hormones, etc. But the great thing about the Resonate as a technology is that it can be used in so many different ways to energize or restructure our water, changing the ability for water to actually hydrate the body. As we know, water is not just water. Apart from the impurities that may be in water, it's also about the structure of water and also the water surface tension. And so this allows for greater levels of hydration of the body, which also allows for greater ability for the water to be absorbed across the membrane, cell membrane, but also for toxins to be released. And this is really important for everyday health when we're thinking in terms of just hydrating the body. But when we talk about food and using the technology of the Resonate with food, we can actually see if we put a Resonate in a fruit bowl and we took one of those bananas or an apple out of the fruit bowl and just put it, further away, let's call it even in another room, you'll actually notice the distinct difference in the rate of deterioration of the vegetables or the fruits that are exposed to this QSET technology by way of the Resonate, or those that aren't. Now, the banana or the orange or the apple didn't read the brochure, doesn't understand quantum science. It is either deteriorating and rotting or it's not. It's pretty simple. And that's just a quick little experiment you can do yourself to actually show the benefit of what this invisible quantum enhanced field produces, because it stabilizes signature patterns of life. And so when you have a food or a vegetable or fruit specifically, it actually stabilizes this field and allows a slower rate of deterioration. So when it's around your body, it acts as a reference point, a bit like a tuning fork for the body, where the body can stay in tune with the greatest level of optimal health. And you can see here with different uses, the necklace, put it in your pocket, or even you can apply it to a certain area of the body that may be in discomfort as well in terms of pain. So lots of different applications as well. So this is an incredibly simple but profound technology that can make a huge difference, because we also have another technology that we can apply to a cell phone or portable media devices, which we maybe put closer to our head, and that has another level of protection for us. But this helps fortify the body in the presence of man-made frequencies. And there are ways that we've been able to test this up as well. So we like to think of it as being like body armor. It helps fortify the body against disruptive energies and frequencies, and promotes a buffer zone like a cocoon. So there's what we refer to as a toroidal field that is like a donut shape that emerges in and around the body. And when this field is disrupted, it can actually have a disturbing effect on the energetic pathways of the body, and then ultimately organ and system function of the body as well. And we like to think of it as being peace of mind, if nothing else. And it looks pretty okay, most people think. Looks a beautiful piece of jewelry, and or it's a great accessory to have on your body. The other aspect of one of the technologies that we developed was or is referred to as Q-SPA. Q for quantum and SPA for spa. So there's no complication on that one. And what Q-SPA has been designed to do is to assist the central nervous system of the body. So the brain and the central nervous system of the body, when it's in a state of stress or de-stress, it actually has a profound implication on the immune system, the cardiovascular system, and many other aspects of our day-to-day health. What it is a very precise use of sound and frequency that you can actually listen to. And what you hear in your left ear will be different to your right ear. And it's not a binaural beat, as some people may be familiar with, and not a binaural beat pattern. It is actually what we refer to as holophonic soundscapes. Now, this holophonic soundscape is designed because the brain thinks in multidimensional forms, this three-dimensional form, if you will, as a hologram, but holophonic because the stimulus triggers and activates different neural pathways of the brain. So it's an innovation that actually combines the latest in what we refer to as neuroacoustic SmartSound technologies with our BioScaler technology from the Q set. So it's an extraordinary innovation that allows people to have, rather than a nano nap, you might think of it as a quantum nap, because just in a very short period of time, by listening to the audio, it has a profound impact on the brain and central nervous system. So when we think of stress, it really is a modern epidemic. And if you can see that little friend there with his Rubik's Cube all in disarray, in distress, and he's searching for the guru on top of the mountain to find this with some insight into how to reassemble this mental and emotional experience of themselves as peace. So brain imbalances actually have a real impact on the body. Now, stress comes in many forms, as we mentioned before. Social media, my goodness, if we didn't get enough likes, you look at teenagers today and their reference point from a self-esteem being shattered because of social media likes or dislikes, or even the very, very sad incidences of, cyberbullying and those sorts of things. Workplace stress, sports stress, peak performance obviously is one level of stress, to say the least. But when you go into finances, relationships, or business or otherwise, and even depression, for some, where they've had a traumatic experience, is referred to as PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder, or where they've actually had an impact, or TBI, traumatic brain injury, this can lead to a range of other levels of dysfunction as in terms of health. And it can be quite simply one of the most tragic aspects of our modern era is domestic violence, which is very much a silent epidemic in some sectors of society as well. Why it's so important realistically from a well-being and health perspective is that we looked at the product development that we need to address the 6 pathways that lead to the 2 causes that are the result of being a malfunctioning cell, or what we refer to as the one disease. Now, we know that medically there are a range of different inputs there that can lead to a malfunctioning cell, whether it be from pharmaceuticals or otherwise, toxins from our environment, either invisible, like the Wi-Fi, or the herbicides, pesticides, or other pollution in our environment, nutrition that can lead to either poor decisions in nutrition, nutritional deficiency there. And as we've highlighted here is the psychological, this brain, this wonderful instrument that we have, that when it's not optimized well through the central nervous system, affects every aspect of our being. You have a bad night's sleep due to stress and worry, and how do you feel the next day? I mean, there's only so many caffeine hits you can have, so many energy drinks you can consume without having some sort of pushback on a physical level. There is also a genetic predisposition that people can have towards disease, and there's also physical aspects of health where there's a deficiency or toxicity, and that could relate to perhaps even lack of movement of the body as well. So these 6 pathways are what we consider to be the important elements that lead to the 2 causes, the deficiency and or toxicity that result in cellular malfunction. And how that plays out from a psychological point of view is why we developed QSPA. Now, QSPA combines what we refer to as SmartSound, which is an incredibly exciting technology that includes full spectrum natural brain frequencies. That includes your alpha, beta, gamma, delta, and theta waves, and also clinical entrainment protocols, rhythmic pulse technologies, what they refer to as cross-hemispheric auditory stimulation, where if you stimulate the left side of the brain, we know that left as in logic, and the right side being more the creative aspect of our being, that when you have this in a state of imbalance, there can be a range of different ways that we can interact on a day-to-day level that may not be optimized. And so with using the technology, we're able to incorporate a range of different aspects, including 3D acoustic binaural fields, solfeggio frequencies, which you may be familiar with if you go back even to, let's call it the Gregorian monks and some of their earlier chants. They have a very, very different soundscape that actually induce a certain level of peace or well-being. And this can be through even indigenous chant or native chants that actually have this same intonation and help with balancing the left and right hemispheres of the brain, right the way through to Dr. Tomatis and some of his research there specifically. Now, the SmartSound has been measured through EEG technology. In fact, in Melbourne at a major hospital, we won't mention exactly which, we don't need people phoning the hospital to bother them, but it was conducted under the guidance of a neuroscientist, and it received what we refer to as a Class 1 medical device through even, in fact, our TGA here in Australia, the Therapeutic Goods Administration. It's the first audio to actually receive a medical device classification. We definitely don't market it as a medical device, nor would we say so. But it has that level of efficacy in terms of being able to clinically show some benefit that is revealed on a functional level, whether it be the brainwave patterns and how they can be induced, which then shows up in a new state of being. So we know that the research from brainwave patterning, from gamma and hypergamma through to beta, some people may know as being the sensory motor rhythms, physical and mental calm. Alpha, some people are familiar with Alpha Brain Training Institute, and why they became so profound during the 80s and 90s, because they were introducing an optimal way of being able to function in our daily life, where we had a calm but aware level of focus and activity, right the way through to theta and of course delta, where we have deep and dreamless sleep and the REM phases as well. So each of these states have a benefit in our life, and when we can influence that state because we choose that, like I am stressed out and I would like to have a good night's sleep, we have developed Juvenate. And Juvenate is an auditory holophonic soundscape that induces a restful, rejuvenative sleep. And there is a short play and a long play for everything other than Juvenate, because obviously sleep is you want to go to sleep. Whereas you look at Accelerate is a peak performance audio program where you can play the short play, but some of them range between 9 to 12 minutes, and then the long play, anything from 17 to about 30 minutes for the long play. So even if you need to have a quantum nap, and you have like the Liberate program, which is for de-stress, through to Meditate, where you have we call it Zen out, where you can have some time out personally, or for Vigorate, which is more about recharging the cells and elevate, as in moods and emotions. And then you'll see on the right-hand side there, the Brain Spa. Brain Spa is actually a free audio that people can go to the website and listen to. And in 12 minutes, they're going to experience one thing. Something happened, and they feel better as a result of listening. And so this is a great little taster or a teaser for people to feel the experience of this. Now, it's not just the sound that they're experiencing, it is also that the sound has been infused with our cue set. It's not something that you hear because cue set is not an auditory process. It is a BioScaler field. And we developed this app, this QSPA app, that allows not only access to our training program online and a range of other tools, but we also have it whereby you can take a photograph of yourself, and that photograph is uploaded through the app, and it is exposed to what we refer to as a BioScaler shower 24/7. So you can think of this as being more like the body hearing a song, and where we can go to the clinical level, where we can take our body to the technology that exists and have a clinical experience with the BioScaler. It's a bit like taking the body to a concert and the body being stimulated as if it were in a concert. So if you can't go to the clinical setting, this is a bit like having the audio version of a song when you can't participate or be at a concert. One of the great things about the technology is it allows you to have your image and or your image of your partner, including Fido the dog, or even Fluffy the cat. So it's not just for humans, it's also for our loved animals and family that you can upload, and they can experience this, gradual BioScaler experience that is cumulative over time as well. And it's a really exciting innovation that allows our members to be able to experience the benefits of an enhancement with the BioScaler fields as well. As Dr. James Hart says here, if you can control your brain and its activity, you can control your life and your experiences. And what we do know is that the brain and the gut have an axis, or what they refer to as the gut-brain axis or connection. And part of the reason for that is, that, you can have a gut feeling about something. And this is also referred to sometimes as being the second brain. part of the reason for that is that there are certain microbes that manufacture up to 90% of our brain's most important chemicals, or what we refer to as neurotransmitters within the gastrointestinal tract. So this is incredibly important for our well-being. And so as we know that with our with the immune system and the immune function, that it's quite literally, you can go between 80 or 90% of our immune function occurs at a gut level. So having a healthy flora and a microbiome in the gut is incredibly important. And that's where the Calibrate works in so beautifully with the Q-Spara and the Resonate, because with the kids specifically, we have a much higher level of probiotics and enzymes in there, typically to ensure that children start off with a healthy gut microbiome. And then obviously with the relationship with the gut-brain axis, you can see a direct relationship there as well. One of the reasons why it becomes important with as a holistic approach to well-being and its relationship going on with Calibrate specifically is one of the ingredients in Calibrate, where we use the cruciferous vegetables, specifically the sprouts from the broccoli, is because it contains a compound called glucoraphanin. Now, glucoraphanin, when it's combined with its the very important myrosinase enzyme, produces what's referred to as sulforaphane. So think of sulforaphane as an indirect antioxidant. It's more like a messenger, if you will. And the reason why this is important is that stress, as we know, accelerates aging and disease. And stress also can compromise our immune system, and you can see the relationship as to why there. But chronic stress also raises the level of excitatory hormones. We know about the cortisol, etc. And this also leads to a breakdown of the body, which can, of course, lead to dis-ease. Now, sulforaphane inhibits the norepinephrine. It's actually the interleukin-6 levels in the body, which are important because, as it says here, interleukin-6 is responsible for the shift from acute inflammation to chronic inflammation, which is the root cause of all chronic degenerative diseases. So you can see how stress plays out here, which leads to inflammation, which leads to chronic degenerative disease. And so we haven't taken a pill approach. We've looked at a holistic approach to reduce the stresses in the brain and the central nervous system, and then optimize the function at this level. Now, one of the some of the testing that we did was conducted by Dr. Luba Dianga, who's actually spent 10 years with NASA at the JSS, the Johnson Space Center, working on projects related to life support systems in space. Specifically was the micronutrient transport in the body in a zero gravity environment. And this was hugely important because some of her technology is able to measure up different regions of the brain, whether it be the frontal lobe, occipital lobe, or otherwise. These different regions of the brain fire up based on the different things that we may be doing, whether we're in creative mode or in competition mode or we're in dreamy mode or otherwise. Different regions of the brain fire up. And she's able to measure and monitor that within highly sensitive equipment and diagnostic equipment as well. Some of the equipment, some of the measurements that she was able to measure is what we refer to as the TMJ, temporomandibular joint, say in the jaw. And if you see the bottom left there, when somebody's in chronic anger, they're biting, they've got this lockjaw rage going on. And you can see our friend there that's not particularly happy on his mobile device. But anger and resentment, if we think of the emotion of livid anger, it actually plays out in the liver. And what we wanted to do is not just develop a technology that made you feel relaxed. That's not the purpose. We wanted to look at beyond relaxed to a functional level to see, is there a way that our different systems of the body could actually be harmonized and optimized. And this is what we were able to measure. So when we looked at joy and grief, you'll notice that also in those moments, our heart and our breathing and the lungs, the relationship between lungs and the heart function is exactly the same when you're in extreme over-the-top joy as it is, interestingly enough, with grief. And it shows up in those organs of the body. Her modeling, as in Dr. Luba's modeling, 3D modeling of before and after, showed up with different regions of the brain. You'll see how it became a more whole brain function even after 1 hour of listening as well. Or this is 1 hour, beg your pardon, after listening to one of the programs specifically. Right the way through to the ECG, the heart rate variability was measured before and after, and it showed up in a range of different ways where it tended to, if somebody was overstimulated, it tended to modulate back to more of a coherent field, or if somebody is understimulated, it changed what they refer to as the heart rate stability coefficient there. So it tended to help normalize anybody irrespective of whether they were over or understimulated, which is incredibly exciting from a well-being perspective. Some of the other measurements we're able to determine was in the areas of the parasympathetic and sympathetic, as we mentioned, the heart rate variability, right the way to the VO2 or oxygen absorption, or more the oxygen pressure at a cell membrane level as well. And of course, the oxygen transported at a serum level. When we look at wellness, we look at what is the simple way of looking at these technologies and how they can be integrated into the bodies. And it comes back down to the healthy cell model. If these 6 different pathways lead to the 2 causes of deficiency or toxicity, which are the causes of cellular malfunction, how can I better work with this input that happens on a daily basis? Well, if you look at point 1 there, we can look at the body as a physical manifestation or a range of physical systems. And so this is where Calibrate, and although Circulate's not available in the Australian, New Zealand market yet for the cardiovascular system, the Calibrate is designed to support, as we know, gene expression, which optimizes the body's primary antioxidant and detoxification enzymes. So rather than antioxidant defense coming from our diet, we are optimizing the body's ability to produce more of its own, or what we refer to as the endogenous antioxidant defenses. The bioenergetic pathways are critically important to the physical health and well-being, and that's why with the QSET BioScaler technology being infused in our Calibrate, as well as our Resonate, as well as our QSPA, you could typically be in a situation where you very easily integrate QSPA, where you have your quantum nap between 9 to 12 minutes a day to recharge your body, to recharge your cell, to reduce stress at a brain and central nervous system level before it becomes oxidative stress at a physical level. So we're interrupting that mechanism there by being able to help reduce these stresses in the body. Resonate, of course, to help the body and fortify the body in the presence of man-made frequencies, and optimize the body at a cellular level with the Calibrate. So this integration really reduces stress at a physical body level and at an energetic mind and emotional level as well. And we just say, simply customize these tools, these wellness technologies in a way that just suits you, whether you have Calibrate for a day or a week. I use it every day. I have an adult in the morning and the kids in the afternoon, and do my little quantum nap periodically throughout the week as well. Some people get into a daily habit of using it, and it's truly transformative. The results that are coming back from people using the technology, the QSPA and the Resonate, is nothing short of exciting, to say the least. People that have had operations from a brain tumor with multiple operations and including chemo, to have a level of function, not just within feeling more present and aware, but also more empathetic, interestingly enough, where they're engaging their kids within the family unit and feeling more able to connect and almost like go across that gap of where they seem to be blurry mentally and emotionally. That has transformed one of our test subjects' lives completely, including his libido, where that had been floundering for maybe 5 or 6 years, and within 1 month the wife had commented it was like their honeymoon all over again, and they were very happy about the results. So it means different things to different people, but at the end of the day, this is about integrating the products in a very, very meaningful lifestyle approach to well-being. And we know that music and sound has a profound impact on our lives, consciously or unconsciously. But if we go back to even some of the ancient texts, they always refer to sound in the beginning, etc., etc. But even we look at here, music without words is like leaving the mind behind. This is not about a song or certain soundscapes that we're trying to give a guided meditation. This will work for somebody in Italy or in Czechoslovakia or in France. It doesn't matter about language. This is about the brain and about this human condition. So music without words is like leaving behind the mind, and leaving behind the mind is meditation. Meditation returns you to the source, and the source of all is sound. And this is a quote from Kabir, who is a Sufi master. At the end of the day, this is just about recognizing how sound can be utilized as a very, very specific way of being able to influence our state of well-being, reduce stress, optimize cell function, right the way down to the mitochondria. And all we can suggest is try the brain spa if you haven't already. And if you experience and enjoy what that's about, we'd highly recommend you subscribe to the Q Spa, and then integrate the Q Spa, we believe, with the Resonate because of the influence of our invisible Wi-Fi world, and of course optimize cellular expression or gene expression at a cellular level with the Calibrate. It's just a really simple way of being able to get well, stay well, and have tools that are profoundly impactful. So on that level, what I'd like to do is to hand it back to Michelle.
I want to first thank everyone who joined today's webinar. It's always a pleasure to have you join us, and we hope that you will be back on the first Wednesday of each month. And I always enjoy working with Chris Neville. Thank you, Chris, for an amazing presentation. And our website is clarity.com, CLAR8ty.com. And please be sure to get back with the person who invited you to this webinar to find out more about Clarity and to purchase Clarity products. Thank you so much, and we look forward to seeing you soon.